Have you ever looked at someone you love and realized you've been disappearing right in front of them? Like, you're still there. You're still showing up. Still trying. But somehow, you're not really you anymore. That was the moment that broke me. Not the day they left. Not the last fight. It was the quiet realization that I stayed too long because I loved too hard and I didn't know how to stop. It's late. I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone is in my hand, but I'm not even scrolling. I'm just holding it, like I'm waiting for something that isn't coming. The room is quiet, but my mind isn't. There's this heavy kind of silence that only shows up at night. The kind that makes you think about everything you tried not to feel all day. And I keep replaying it. All of it. Not because I want to, but because my heart never really got the message that it was over. I remember how it started. It was simple. It wasn't some big dramatic moment. It was just easy. They made me laugh. They looked at me like I mattered. And for a while, I believed it. I believed I was finally with someone who saw me. We stayed up late talking about nothing. We sent stupid texts during the day. We had those small moments that didn't seem important at the time, like the way they reached for my hand without thinking, or how they'd say my name like it meant something. And I fell into it. Hard. Because when you've been lonely for a long time, even a little love feels like everything. I didn't hold back. I gave them all of me. My time, my energy, my softness, my effort. I became the person who always checked in first, always cared first, always forgave first. At first, it didn't feel like sacrifice. It just felt like love. Because love is supposed to be giving, right? Love is supposed to mean showing up. So I showed up. Again and again, even when I was tired, even when I wasn't sure, even when something inside me whispered, this doesn't feel equal anymore. But I ignored that voice because I didn't want to lose them. And honestly, I didn't want to admit that I might already be losing myself. It happened slowly. That's what people don't talk about. Love doesn't always break in one big moment. Sometimes it fades in small pieces. A text that takes longer to answer. A hug that feels less warm. Plans that start getting canceled. Smiles that don't reach their eyes anymore. At first, I made excuses. They're just stressed. They're busy. They still love me. They just don't show it the same. And I kept trying harder. Like effort could fix distance. Like if I loved them enough, they'd come back. So I became quieter about my needs. I stopped bringing things up. I started swallowing feelings. Because every time I did speak, it felt like I was asking for too much. And I didn't want to be too much. So I became less honest, less emotional, less me. I started measuring my words, timing my messages, overthinking everything. I would stare at my phone, wondering if I should text first, then doing it anyway, because the silence felt worse. And slowly, love stopped feeling like something beautiful and started feeling like something I had to earn. I remember the nights I cried quietly, not because they did something cruel, but because they didn't do anything at all. They weren't holding me the way they used to. They weren't asking how I was. They weren't noticing that I was slipping. And I kept thinking, if If they loved me, wouldn't they care? But I stayed. Because I remembered the beginning. And I kept chasing that version of them. The one who used to look at me like I was home. I kept thinking, maybe it'll go back. Maybe this is just a phase. Maybe if I'm patient, maybe if I'm better, maybe if I don't ask for too much, they'll choose me again. So I waited and waited and waited. And the longer I stayed, the more I forgot what it felt like to be loved without begging for it. The moment everything broke wasn't loud. There wasn't screaming. There wasn't some dramatic goodbye. It was actually quiet. Too quiet. We were sitting together. Same room. Same space. But it felt like we were miles apart. They were on their phone. I was looking at them. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time they really looked back. So I asked, softly, almost like I was scared of the answer. Are we okay? They didn't even pause. They just said, I don't know. 2 words. That was it. No emotion. No reassurance. No fight for us. Just, I don't know. And something inside me cracked. Because I had been giving everything. And they couldn't even give me certainty. I sat there, trying not to cry, trying to stay calm. I feel like I'm doing this alone. And they sighed. Like I was exhausting. Like my sadness was an inconvenience. And they said, I can't do this right now. That was the moment. Not when they left. Not when they stopped texting. Not when they moved on. It was the moment I realized they already had. I was still holding on to someone who was already gone. I went home that night, and I didn't even feel heartbreak at first. I felt numb, because I finally understood love wasn't the thing keeping us together. It was my fear, my hope, my refusal to let go. And I hated myself for staying, but I also understood why. Because when you love someone deeply, you don't want to believe they can stop loving you back. After that, everything felt different. I kept replaying every moment, every conversation. Every time I ignored my own feelings just to keep peace. I kept blaming myself. Maybe I asked too much. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe if I was easier, prettier, less emotional, they would have stayed. But the truth is, I wasn't asking for perfect. I was asking for real. I was asking for effort. I was asking to feel chosen. And somehow, I started shrinking just to fit into their distance. I stopped recognizing myself. I used to be someone who laughed freely, someone who spoke honestly, someone who didn't question their worth every night. But love turned into something heavy, something painful, something that cost me pieces of myself. And the worst part is, I didn't leave when it started hurting. I stayed because I hoped. I stayed because I remembered the good. I stayed because walking away felt like admitting it meant nothing. But it did mean something. That's what makes it so hard. It wasn't fake. It wasn't all bad. That's why it broke me. Because I wasn't holding on to nothing. I was holding on to almost love, almost effort, almost being enough for them to stay. And almost is a special kind of heartbreak, because you can't stop thinking, if I just tried a little more. But love shouldn't feel like begging. Love shouldn't feel like loneliness in the same room. Love shouldn't turn you into someone who disappears just to keep someone else comfortable. And I think that's what I finally understood. I didn't lose them first. I lost myself. Slowly. Quietly. While still saying I'm fine. I still miss them sometimes. Not even the person they became, but the person I thought they were at the beginning. I miss the version of me that believed love was safe. Now, it's just silence, memories, songs I can't listen to anymore, places that feel different, and this strange emptiness where I used to put all my effort. There was no just distance that turned into absence. And I think that's what hurts the most. Not that they left, but that I stayed long enough to forget what it felt like to be loved without losing myself. Some people don't break your heart by leaving. They break it by letting you stay until you're the only one still holding on. And I'll always carry this truth with me. I stayed too long because I loved too hard, and I didn't realize I was the one I was losing.